Okay, today I'm going to show you how to change to the rear brakes and rotors on a 2011 M37x. Most people get intimidated by changing their own brakes just because they have no idea where to even begin. What I'm going to do today is show you step by step on where to start. First, after you remove the wheel, you want to make sure that your vehicle is set up on props, jack stands, and a jack. I purchased the wheel ramps just because, as you know, with these vehicles, they set so low to the ground it's hard to find a place to actually lift the vehicle up. So I actually backed it up onto the ramps first, then went ahead and lifted it up with the jack stand, or with the jack, and then put it up on jack stands. So the first place you're going to start is right up here. You have a bolt here and a bolt right down here that basically hold the caliper clamps in place. You're going to remove these two first, and that's going to remove the entire part off. I'll pause for now and then start again in a minute. Alright, so now that the bolts are removed, this piece right here will come right off. Now you want to set this up here. Don't let it just dangle by the hose. Not good on it. Could end up breaking it. And that's even more a pain in the butt to have to bleed the lines and fill it back up with brake fluid. So the next step is going to be back in here at the top. If I can get a little light, you'll have a bolt here that's going to hold this bracket on, and another bolt down here. Let's see if I can get a better view of it. With that, I found this little piece is very helpful in doing it. It's about a 3-foot pry bar. I highly suggest that you get one of those whenever you remove it, and then you're going to end up using a 3/4 inch socket to break that loose. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll start again in a minute. I'm almost done pulling out the last bolt here. As I said, that 3-foot pry bar really helps. No power tools are needed when changing these brakes, and it also helps you put it back to the manufacturer standards where they install it with the machinery that puts it in the correct order. But I just like to unscrew it the rest of the way. Before you do that though, make sure you pull off your brake pads. You don't want those just to fall off randomly. And these just slide out. There we go. Looks like there's about 2 millimeters left on that. Let's see how the back one looks. The back one is down to about 1 millimeter. Relatively uniform wear. The other side was in a little bit worse shape just because it looked like the caliper had locked up a little bit, so I had to do a little work with it and clean it up and make sure that it was working properly. But you want to make sure that your brake pads aren't down all the way to the metal, because then it starts eating into the rotor. I ended up having to replace the rotor on the other side, so I'm going to have to do the same here. Alright, so almost finished here. Alright, so once that last bolt's off, this piece just slides right off. Next, this is where some people end up getting a little bit anxious because they don't know where to start with this. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. Alright, you'll notice that there's a pin here that's wrapped around. It kind of looks like a little bobby pin. I don't know the exact name for it, but this is just simple as getting a pair of pliers and straightening this out. And then on the other side, you're going to see the loop end of it, and you can pull it right out. So as I was saying, once you straighten this out, this piece right here pulls right out here. And you just set it to the side for use later. Next, this piece right here is a little stuck on there a little bit. You can actually straighten these pieces out just a little bit, and that'll pull right off. The main thing is that you got to make sure that you don't break these, because you will need to push them back so it holds the main bolt and everything else into place for one tight structure. Alright, once done, this comes off. I ended up using a pair of flathead screwdrivers on either side and propped it off on both sides. Next, you have this big bolt right here, right in the middle. Don't be intimidated by this. You're going to go to AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts, O'Reilly, whatever they are, and they're going to tell you that you need a special tool to remove all this stuff. Don't buy it. You don't need it. All you need is a $10 1¼ inch socket, and then with the pry bar that I mentioned, the 3-foot pry bar, that will allow you to remove that. Key thing you need to note when doing this though, push in your emergency brake, otherwise this whole rotor is going to turn. It'll lock it in place so that you can actually break that loose. Alright, go ahead and do that now, and then I'll be back in a minute. Okay, once you remove the nuts, next down inside there you're going to see a washer. I end up having to get the 2 flathead screwdrivers on either side to pull that off. Some people call it standard, but it just looks like that. Stick it in there and you can pull it off on either side. It's a little difficult, that's why I say to always use 2. Alright, now that I pulled that off, the next thing you're going to do is remove this rotor. Before you do that though, now's the time to release that emergency brake so that the rotor turns freely. That way, as you're hitting it off, you can rotate it. I use some brake fluid cleaner, brake cleaner, and I like to spray the outside here because that does kind of adhere to it and get those lug nuts a little bit. Then what you're going to do is hit on the back of the rotor with a hammer. Don't worry about hurting this. You're already going to replace it, so it doesn't matter. But you'll hit a little bit, turn, hit again, turn, and then that will eventually break off. Alright, this side wasn't too bad. About 60 seconds of hitting on it and already it's loose and about ready to come off. The other side took me a good 5 minutes, but it just depends on how hard it's adhered to it. Once you remove this, all you're going to do is slide back on the new rotor. Okay, once you have the new rotor in place, you notice that it has this little opening in here. I'm not quite sure what this is used for, however, it does have it on the other side, so I'm just going to pop off the rubber stopper on this side and just transplant it over. Alright, once you have that in, now it's just a matter of putting everything back together. Your washer, make sure you put it on the same way. Then your lug nuts, that'll screw right over the top. Alright, tighten up the lug nut, hit your emergency brake, then use that pry bar to tighten that back up on there. Finally, well not finally, you're going to put back on the little piece over top. There we go. And then you'll put your pin back in right here. Hold it out a little bit so you can see a little bit better. Alright, you're going to put the pin back in as I said. You probably have to hit it down. I used a hammer to hit it in, and then bend it back over with the pliers. Next, you're going to mount your mounting bracket again. Pretty simple, just the same way you took it off, put it back on. I used the pry bar for the larger bolts in the back that were difficult to get off. Then I just use a simple 1/2-inch socket and ratchet to put on the upper bolts where you have the spongy part here. The little Alright, next part is once you have your mounting bracket on, the caliper. You need to compress this. Once again, AutoZone, O'Reilly, all the others are going to tell you that you have to buy some special tool to compress this. You really don't need to. I'm going to show you how you can do it without buying all that. First thing though, you need to make sure this is all cleaned up. Use that brake cleaner with a wire brush. Try not to mess up the gasket around it, but wipe this off a little bit, spray it down, and make sure that that flows freely. Alright, once you have it cleaned up, I took the wire brush to it. Then all you're going to do is use 2 tools to actually compress this. One, a C-clamp. Do not use the C-clamp directly on the caliper ring. You can damage that. But what you're going to do is open that C-clamp up, and you're going to lay just a regular wrench right across it. You're going to put the bottom of the C-clamp, this part right here, right in the middle. This part here, you will latch right there. You'll hold it in place. Some people can use two people to do this. I usually can do it by myself, but you just hold it in place and you slowly push it in. It's going to press that in, all the fluid back into there. Don't worry about bleeding your brakes or anything else. It's a closed system. Once you hit your brakes, it's going to be all pushed back. As long as you don't open up the bleeder valve on top right here, you don't have anything to worry about. You don't need to bleed your brakes or anything else. They will come back just like normal. All you're doing is pushing all that excess fluid back up into the reservoir, and as long as you don't have it filled up to the max, which you shouldn't be, it won't overflow or anything. So you just push that back in and we'll start in a minute. Alright, so there we go. It's all pressed in. And like I said, using a wrench across it, make sure that you get an even distribution, so it's pushing in not just one side or the other, but evenly across it. Now all you're going to do is put your brake pads back in place. This slides back over top and you tighten up your bolts. Essentially, that's all it is, and you're done. Put your tire back on, you're good to go. Pump your brakes a few times once you get into the vehicle just to get the brake fluid going back to it, and you're all done. Essentially, this job just for the rear brakes, I bought the ceramic brake pads from AutoZone, and then I also bought the Rotor's lifetime warranty on both, so that if those brake pads ever do wear down, you can return them for free and they'll just give you brand new brake pads. Same way with the Rotor. If anything happens to that Rotor, so long as it's not unusual wear where you let the brake pads go all the way down, they'll replace your rotors for free as well. So I love AutoZone O'Reilly for those, for that fact. The entire job costs less than $100. I got the ceramics for about $55, $60. The rotors ended up costing $90, so I take that back, about $130 to $140 for the whole job, where everywhere else in town was going to charge about $500 to do it. And this literally, outside the video, 11 minutes. I probably spent another 15 minutes, so an hour job, and I end up saving $350. Hope this helped. Have a good day.